Welcome to the Reverberations podcast, where we explore the human experience and the journey of self-discovery. All right, welcome to another episode of Reverberations. This is your host, John Stuart. I am really excited about our show today. I have dear friend Morten Veimann, also known as Youth, and we're going to get into that. I want to share a little bit about our story and how everything wove in together for us. We connected so beautifully when we went to the festival that Aubrey Marcus put on, Arcadia, a festival for a better world, which ended up being in Las Vegas. There was a journey for both of us, even to get to Vegas, because initially it was going to be in Wyoming. And we ended up making the trek and switching it over to Vegas. While I was on my way out to Vegas, I had the intent before going to the festival, before getting to our Airbnb, that we were going to be staying in together with 7 other people. One of the things that I always like to do is to anchor in my travels. And anytime that I travel, if there's a national park that's anywhere in the vicinity, then I am going, because it's a mission for me that every year that I do my best to visit 2 new national parks that I haven't been to. So Zion was a short 3-hour stint. Actually, it took us a little bit longer to get there because we were in deep conversation along the way. And it was so divinely orchestrated for us because it was an opportunity for us to share so many stories about our past and the synchronicities that came up in our own personal lives with relationships, with our viewpoints, with what we're of service to, what we're expanding, what we're opening, tapping into mythology. And the whole thing almost didn't even happen because my rental car was about an hour and a half late. It took me about 5 rental cars to finally be able to get out of the rental car facility in Las Vegas. And then there was an experience that, Morten was having with getting over to the hotel, and the timing of it was just impeccable for us to be able to link up. And I went to pick him up, but we had that incredible car ride of where we went out to Zion. And then when we got to Zion, we had just this beautiful trek through the Narrows together. And with flash flood warnings and all that, we just kept on going. We were pushing through it, man. We were going through, and we just had such a beautiful experience. So with no further ado, I want to open it up and welcome my friend Morten Veimann to the show, who is coming to us from Norway. So Morten, I want to ask you, where are you now? So this was back in July when we connected, and what are you up to, and what do you have service to now?
Oh, well, I want to start off with just saying thank you so much for having me. This is just an honor, and I love you so much, brother.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, well, I have to start off with just reminding the audience that I'm from Norway, like you said, and English is not really my first language. I tend to get hung up on finding the right words sometimes, and maybe I'll even ask you for help with that.
Absolutely.
But bear with me. I do my best. So about the where I'm at, yeah. So it's been. Let's start with just saying that I am 38 years of age. It's been a long journey for me to get to where I am today. And when I say a long journey, I'm referring to the fact that I've, after 10 years of being a firefighter, I ended up leaving my job in December of last year after having this serious existential identity crisis, all of the things at the same time, starting to tap into what spirituality really was, having an acute, what I refer to as an acute Kundalini awakening, which was just, to be honest, pretty brutal, because I experienced how it feels to have a total psychotic meltdown, where I didn't really know what was real and what was not real. In retrospect, though, I know that what happened was that I was breaking so many layers down about who I used to be and struggling now finding out who I was becoming. And, navigating through the waters of that can be quite tough. So, what I did when I left my job was I set out on a course just to truly just go fully into the spiritual journey and my hero's journey, and figure out, okay, who am I? Why am I here? Where am I going? What am I creating? So this takes a lot for a person to figure out all of these answers in such a short time. But I find that I've been able to figure it all out. And just now, couple of months ago, things started to finally land with me, and I found back to who I truly am beyond all the layers, and just finding out that I am like. And what I mean with that is that there's really no label that will define me, as long as I am not conscious about labeling myself. So I'm very conscious about holistic lifestyle, how to eat, move, and be healthy, which is basically a concept that I got from Paul Chek.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also very consciously moving in a direction of how to navigate my life with congruency towards my truth, what I stand for, what I believe in, my habits, and call it addictions, what's destructive patterns that causes my behavior, and how can I work to weave that into a better way of living, a more constructive way of living. So I've been, breaking myself down into nothing, and then building myself back up into the full beauty of everything that I am. So right now, to come back to the initial question, I've decided to start all over. I have my own website. I've been working on some ebooks. I'm writing my own book with a working title of Conscious Being, Conscious Doing. And also considering, starting up my own podcast, while at the same time being in rough waters when it comes to my financial situation, and being a dad to two girls, being recently divorced 2 years ago. Me and my wife split up, and just trying to figure it all out at the same time, while at the same time staying true to the course, staying true to what I feel like I'm here to do. So yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing, man. One of the things that I love about you, besides everything, is how vulnerable you are in your expression. You lay it all on the line, everything. There's no filter of, if there's anything that needs to be known, it's going to be expressed. And I deeply appreciate that. So I want to kind of touch on a few things. So when you left last December, coming from being a firefighter, and then going into that existential crisis of where it's like, well, who am I really?
Mm-hmm.
That's going from a firefighter. What was that like? What was that process like of going where you are in the midst of going into burning buildings, saving people, and then I know that you had other capacities like with diving, right? Of when
Yeah.
you were
Mhm.
doing the diving. And so you have all these different layers of being of service to the community, saving people's lives. And then you're like, well, for me, I'm looking at it, well, what about me? What about me? Who am
Yeah.
I outside of this
Mhm.
identity that you spoke to, right?
Yeah.
So can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would love to do that. Thank you for bringing that up because I usually don't talk a lot about it, but I feel like it's very important. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, the reason I left the fire department was not because I didn't feel like being a firefighter anymore. I love the service part of being a firefighter, helping people. Um, Everything about the job really was something that I was highly passionate about. What I didn't uh, feel like was in alignment with my truth was the fact that um, the fire department is a very hierarchical uh, organization with command lines and command structures. And basically, what we're told when we enter into the fire department is that the elders know best. They have been there the longest. You shouldn't ask too many questions because things are like they're what they are because that's what works, basically. So
Yeah.
sit down and shut up kind of mentality.
Mhm.
And me being a very curious human being who loves to ask questions because I hate when people can't tell me the reason for why they're doing what they're doing. Like that's a red flag for me when people can't answer me
Yeah.
like basic questions about why do we do that. I don't know. We've always done it. Like, okay,
Right.
there might be some better ways though. I've noticed that we do this and that. Could it perhaps be better to do it this way? And then, yeah. So that's what you know made me essentially leave the fire department, not because of the service thing, but because I felt like I wasn't seen, I wasn't acknowledged as the capacity that I feel like I am, and wasn't really valued as the asset that I saw myself as. And I'm saying this with confidence because I came from a role where I was responsible for a lot of things. Like you mentioned, the diving aspect of it. When we're talking about diving here, we're not talking about smoke diving, although I've been doing that as
Yeah.
well. Um, we're talking about rescue diving, which is basically diving into water, right, and picking up people who has drowned. And I was responsible for all the divers in Norway. So it's basically
Wow.
almost 450 divers, and the organization um, that sort of made that a communion or a community where we were standing up for our rights and how to sort of bring the best service to people in all of the country, because Norway's very, we have urban cities here and there, but mostly it's just a very rural country, countrysides with high mountains and deep valleys. It's not easily accessible everywhere, but there are a lot of lakes, and there we have a coastline that just reaches entirely across the country from the south to the north. So people drown uh, everywhere, and there are way more people drowning in Norway than people dying from fires. So yeah, navigating through all of that, not feeling seen, and at the same time leaving my marriage, going through a couple of years where I decided to help the fire department out with administration of regulating how to do things. So I ended up being an operative firefighter and rescue diver to going into an office where we were basically locked down because of COVID. And I was staying at home very much. And I was sort of isolated the entire time. I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but you know what happens to prisoners in prison who are thrown into isolations or isolation cells is that even within the 24 or 48 hours of being in that state, they start actually making up friends in their minds to have someone to talk to. And I wasn't talking to a lot of beings. That's not what I'm saying, but I was communicating a lot with myself. So you can see this also with older people who get stuck in living alone after their spouse has died or something like that.
Yeah.
They tend to be very lonely and they start to just talk to themselves, and because it's too lonely to have no one to talk to. And so it also opened up a space for me to dive into the depths of who I really was and figuring out, okay, why the hell did I even end up in the fire department? So what made that happen? Was I consciously aware of that choice? And that made me aware of, okay, probably, there's trauma here that I could explore further from my childhood and see if that has been the driving factor for me ending up where I am today. And that made me tap into having a father figure who was, not really there for me when I was growing up. Had severe abandonment issues with the call it the authority. What is it called? Authority figure on the
Authority figure.
Yeah, authority figure on the father side of things. Never really taught me how to be a man, and I lived a lot with my mother and had to figure that out by myself. Also had a twin sister, and my mother, she moved in with a friend after she and my father split up when I was 8, and that got me into living with an all-girl environment. Uh, and during the time between 8 and 18 years of age, I was very much with the feminine side of things.
Yeah.
The positive aspect of that is that I have been able to speak the language of women, right? And know more about how they work. But the problem was that I felt a sense of lack when it came to feeling like a man, basically. So what happened when I was like 18, 19 years old was that I became very aware of it. So I went into the army. I was in the army for a year. And then coming back from that, I started studying religion at university. So I was there studying religion for about 18 months, but it ended up with me, partying a lot, drinking way too much alcohol, and being depressed and not really managing things very well. So I ended up leaving the university, going back home, had to get several jobs to work myself out of debt, reset the whole agenda that I was having. And then I met a woman that I ended up being in a relationship with. And we lived together for 4 years. And as I was moving into that, I decided to explore my masculinity even further. So I was working more with my hands. I was moving towards becoming a carpenter. And then from that, I decided maybe I should just go into the fire department. But, in retrospect, I know that all of these choices was made because I felt a lack of the authority figure on the father side. So I was moving into cultures and environments where there were a lot of manly authority figures who could give me validation every time I was acting like a man, like a man should, and that got me into the fire department. And the lack of validation didn't really stop there. So after 10 years of being in the fire department, I had thrown myself into basically everything that I could, just in order for me to feel seen and validated within that organization. And I was chasing validation externally so much that I was running thin on energy, and I became depressed because I felt it's like you fill up a bathtub and you leave the drain open. So whenever people give you a validation, it feels good for like 5 seconds, and you look for the next. So so becoming aware of that, I decided that I need to dive even deeper into who I am, because this is not working, and I'm not going to stay within a job just because I need some validation externally. I need to find that validation within me and start loving myself and start seeing myself as worthy of receiving love, as a sovereign being who, can navigate and stand up for himself and find my integrity. What is it that I'm willing to stand up for? What is it that I'm here to do, basically? And that's what led me into listening to a podcast with the one and only Paul Chek, like I mentioned earlier. And he has this podcast it's called Living 4D with Paul Chek, where he really dives so deep within the holistic lifestyle approach, how to live your life holistically.
So is that, for the listeners out there who may not know who Paul Chek is that's his delivery is talking about the holistic lifestyle?
Well, the way I perceive Paul Chek is that he has so many layers. He has so much knowledge that I can't even begin to explain the depths of the man. But that's what got me into listening to him, because I was intrigued by the knowledge about holistic lifestyle. But he just interweaves different disciplines in such a beautiful way that makes it so easily understandable. So it's basically free knowledge for everyone or anyone who wants to explore that. He has like 250 episodes or something right now, with a lot of deep individuals that has been guests on his podcast as well. It's just like the Aubrey Marcus podcast, which I know that you are listening to that as well. It just becomes this platform where you can just eavesdrop into a lot of wisdom.
Absolutely.
And use it as a way of reflecting over what they're saying, and how I can use that within my own life to become a better person or a better version of myself. So it's been the holistic lifestyle approach. It began with me being very interested in the mental aspect of it, the physical aspect of it, and how to navigate destructive emotions. And then spirituality just kept coming up, and explaining how different religious views, different belief systems and so forth, were how they are really telling the people the same kind of messages through different channels. And that got me really interested in exploring further the path that I started on when I was 20 and was studying religion, because I know that at a soul level, I'm very interested in, in how people work, how we work as human beings, how we're just clockworks,
Yeah.
who that just how we tick, and what creates different belief systems, how do we perceive the world, um, and why, and
Yeah.
breaking it all down. And that led me into playing with different aspects of spirituality. I started meditating. I started doing breath work. He has this podcast with Wim Hof, so I became aware of Wim Hof, the Iceman Wim Hof, who does a lot of cold plunges and breath work. Downloaded his app, and I started practicing all of this. And with doing that, through meditation and breath work, I started having just this profound experiences with visions and things. Just I felt like I was communicating with the entire universe, sort of.
Yeah.
And that led me into a path of a lot of synchronicities. So many synchronicities that it became impossible to be blind to it.
Yeah.
And that led me onto a pure spiritual journey where I needed to just check this out. So, yeah, I could dive in deeper into that, but I feel like I would like to give the talking stick back to you.
Yeah, I mean, you just touched on so much, man. Thank you. I mean, it's really beautiful to hear you shared and articulate the path that you have taken from going from firefighter, being of service in that capacity, right? And then leaning into yourself of recognizing, okay, well, this hierarchical pathway really isn't for me. Now I've got all these questions,
Mm-hmm.
right, that aren't being answered, and some of them are, and they're not really the answers that I was really looking for, in a sense, or maybe they are the answers that I was looking for, because now I know that the path is for me to navigate in this other direction. So now I've got other questions. So one of the things that you had mentioned that I want to touch upon, especially for us men that have grown up, and was exacerbated in the 60s and 70s, when the divorce rate had increased so significantly to where there were single mothers raising the boys, and the boys didn't have men in their lives to be able to look up to or to have them as a consistent mentor in their life. In my own life, that's the storyline that was for me. I had my stepfather, though he was, he did his best, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't have my father in the picture. My grandfather is the most amazing man that has been a mentor to me, but he wasn't consistent every single day. He was there, consistently to the best that he could, but he wasn't my father, right? So one of the things that you mentioned that is a core byproduct of that is the chasing validation, seeking of approval. Because for men, one of the things, I mean, this isn't just me speculating or me just throwing things out there. This is, studies upon studies of where there has been men that have been in a fatherless home, of where we're seeking approval because men have this inherent trait of performance, right? We have to meet these expectations. We have to meet these bars to be a man, to become a man, to be worthy of manhood.
Yeah.
And that goes back centuries upon centuries, though. So I love that you talked about that, because not many men do, right? Many men won't bring that conversation to the table and say, this is where I was. I was in a space of, I was looking for something in this capacity. I went and I tried to identify with my manhood. And what I found is I didn't really like it.
Yeah.
And now I'm on this journey to self-identify. So before we even got on the podcast, we were, kind of riffing a little bit before we even got into it. And it was like, man, that was really something that we could bring into this.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you shared was breaking down who you are. Let's break down who I am, right? And there's this
Yeah.
new breed of being. There's this new breed of the collective, this new self-image for myself, meaning you, meaning me, and also this new image of what the collective is. Can you share a little bit about that and where you're moving with that? What has come forward in your journey and your expression with that?
Absolutely. Sometimes I just don't know quite where to start, but let's use myself as an example. So what I did just after leaving the fire department was I had this. I did a lot of what most people would probably call crazy shit, but but what I did was I went to I got to know Dr. Joe Dispenza. If people don't know him, he's available online. Just Google him.
Absolutely.
But he has his own website, and he has a lot of meditations that you can download from there. Just buy it. So I listened to some of them, and I just decided, okay, I'm going to invest in this, and it ended up with me investing in all of his meditation. And he had some audio files that he calls walking meditations, and you're supposed to bring your headphones and walk into the forest or something like that and do a journey where you actually walk as you meditate. And in the midst of that, you take some breaks where you just stand still, close your eyes, feel at one with the environment and surroundings around you. And I combined that with doing it in total darkness out in the woods. And what happened was I had this profound experience where all of a sudden I saw a jaguar approaching me, and it said, welcome, I'm going to teach you how to let go of fear.
Yeah.
So I'm telling the listeners this now because I know I've told you this story before, but it's important for the message that I'm coming to, or the point that I'm coming back to. So the jaguar was just walking in front of me, and we stepped off the path, and we came just up on the top of a little hill. And all of a sudden I saw an eagle, and the eagle had a serpent in his talons flying just past me. And then I saw a hummingbird. And then I saw my body was sort of hovering maybe 300 feet above the ground. And I saw this light coming down from the sky, and I saw that my body was just enlightened. And then the jaguar turned towards me, and she said, this is going to happen. You're going to have an acute awakening process now, spiritual awakening, if you just let go of fear. And that was a week prior to me handing in my resignation for the work. So I instantly just recognized that, okay, that's what I'm afraid of, to step out of work, not having an income and all the insecurities that comes with that. But I decided then and there that, okay, I'm just going to do this. And the week after I handed in my resignation, and the day after I did that, my mom invited me to join her and some friends on a winter solstice ceremony, a fire ceremony. I had never been to anything like that. And since I was curious about the whole aspect of it, I decided to join. And the woman that initiated that whole sequence, she asked us to open up to the four directions and Father Sky and Mother Earth as this initiation of the ritual that we were stepping into. And as we were turning in the four direction, I noticed she said, like, we're turning to the south to Mother Serpent or Mother Snake, to the west to the Mother Jaguar, and to the north the sister Mother Hummingbird, and then to the east to the eagle. And I was just mesmerized by that, by the synchronicities of that, because I
Yeah.
didn't really, what the hell? I was just in awe. And it got me rushing back home, Googling these four animals, and I found, that they are archetypes for the Laika shamans in the high mountains of the Andes in Peru, which led me to explore further and finding Alberto Vialdo, who is a shaman down there, who has written several books, and he has his own website where he has online courses about shamanism and the chakras, and how that is really another way of explaining how the nervous system works with the endocrine system. And to just break that down really easy for people, that we have 7 chakras in traditional views of the body, and neurology is, we have also 7 nerve bundles within our body. That's scientifically proven, right? And these nervous bundles, they are also plexuses, which become energy centers in the body, and they are closely related to different set of destructive emotions. Like, for instance, the wounding of the first chakra, which is the root chakra, it's linked to our roots, our ancestral lines. It's linked to shame, and the first moment in our life where we experience being ashamed of who we are, because all of a sudden our parental figure was looking at us in a strange way and not being appreciative of our behavior or what we just did.
Yeah.
Which makes us feel like we're wrong, like what we did was wrong, and that makes us wrong, and that's what creates shame. And all of this got me really curious to dive deeper into all of that and figure out, okay, how can I use this knowledge and information to figure out what happened to me at an early age? When did I become ashamed of who I was? When did I start hiding myself and my true self from not only my parents, but my friends, from the authority figures at school, from everyone, from society in general? And what I found was that the thing that happens to our inner child when we don't feel appreciated or validated from the external forces is that we start looking for that validation, to sort of get back to feeling seen and back to being not wrong, but actually right.
Yeah.
So if a person who has power over me and how I feel tells me I'm wrong, I allow them also to be able to define me as right. So whenever they tell me what I did was right, I feel like, oh, finally I'm seen again. And that's what creates the initial wounding. But the problem with that is that when you stop telling your truth because you want to please the people around you in order for them to declare you as right and that you belong, is that when you stop telling your truth, every time you need to swallow your truth, it stops at the throat chakra, at the communication center in the body, and it is just, you have to threaten the whole emotion way back down again, and it stores as destructive energy in the lower chakras. And the thing that happens is that once you believe that you can't tell your truth to people, that becomes your reality. That's what becomes real to you. And what's real to you is also what's true to you. So you're telling yourself that people don't care much about my opinion and what my truth is, so I'd rather just not say it. And when that becomes your truth, you are officially entering the victim state of being.
Yeah.
So that, without diving too much or further into that, that is sort of the ground layer or foundation that led me to find out, oh my God, I entered the fire department because I need validation from authority figures that uh, just to see my father in them and see that.
Right. So seeing that reflection of what it is that you were desiring.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, how powerful is that?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? To have that realization in that moment of like, hey man, I went into the fire department because of this. And having that realization in that moment is such an empowering space to be in.
Yeah.
Because now there's a launch pad.
Absolutely.
So now that you have this realization, now what?
What happened?
Yeah.
Well, I decided to go even deeper and figure out, okay, this is the initial wounding. And what Alberto Rioldo is teaching people in this course is that the first wounding usually happens within the first 7 living years of your life.
Right.
And that's what is usually linked to the first chakra. And then the next 7 years, from 7 to 14, is the second chakra. And then from 14 to 21, your solar plexus, and so on and so on. So 7 years for each. Mm-hmm. So I started figuring out that, okay, maybe I should just try to start journaling and start to break things down about, okay, where did I have all my wounds? Where did they come from? How can I best navigate into a new truth where I actually tell myself that the truth that I initially came here with is important. And even though people might not appreciate it, I have to stand in it and step up and be empowered by my own truth and not be a victim of other people's truth, but rather be a victor of my own truth.
Yes.
So that led me to figuring out, oh my God, I'm basically 37 years old. I've lived half my life now. And all the choices that I've made in my life has not been conscious about this very fact, which means that I'm unconsciously doing a lot of things and creating a lot of things and setting a lot of things into motion that I'm really not conscious about. And that's what led me to break everything down and figure out, okay, what kind of world am I contributing to by not devoting my entire energy into forging the truth and the future that I want for me and my kids and the generations to come.
Yes.
That's what led me to finding my why.
Yeah.
Right. And the why is linked to the purpose of why I'm here. And if you can combine that with passion, like the good side of your ego rather than the ego that just wants recognition. If you can use that passion to create drive towards in the direction that you want to go, and you're standing in your truth, nothing can stop you.
Yes.
It will take time to establish everything, but nothing can stop you because you know why you're here. You know what needs to be done. And basically, what I found was that that's the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell is talking about so much, like finding the integrity of who I truly am.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided that, after figuring all of this out, that the only reason why I'm here now is to make other people aware that this is what is creating their lives, that most people are actually not aware of why they're doing the things they're doing. A lot of people are chasing validation, which is, to me, just another word for chasing admiration from people. And the admiration part is to compare yourself to others. Whenever I would feel like I needed validation from certain individuals, and I saw that the authority figure that I needed validation from rather gave that validation to other people, I started automatically comparing myself with those individuals and seeing, okay, how can I be more like them so that I also get that validation? And that actually creates the destructive pattern of the society of hierarchy today, of competing for attention.
Absolutely.
Which just it's the foundational layer of all of the hierarchy and the patriarchal society that we are living in. So I want to just get that message across to people and make them aware that this is actually what you're contributing to by not stepping into your own power. You're giving your power away to the man on top of things. So basically, if you break down the word pattern, it derives from pater or pater, which is Latin and means father. So every time you are unconscious about your patterns, you are giving your power away to the pater, the father figure. And there's a reason why we call the government daddy government, right? It's our father figure. It's our way of, giving our power away to someone who we hope and pray would take all of our problems away and fix the world for us.
Yeah.
But actually they can't. It's impossible for one human being to be a power or on a social platform where he's able to create an environment for all of the people around him, even for the community of 100 people. That becomes very difficult because you just don't have the bandwidth to do that. So what I believe in is that everyone needs to step back into their own power and become their own saviors and start on their own hero's journey and be conscious about who they are and what they're doing to create a better world.
Yeah, it's so powerful, man. And thank you for sharing that, because that message right there, kind of takes us home, right?
Yeah.
You shared your journey of what led you getting there. Now there's a few things that I do want to tap into that you've shared with me. And this kind of leads us to the present moment, right? Of where are we now? And you spoke to being a victor of my own truth. And it's so powerful. And then you shared what that was for you to be able to relate that to others, to be a savior of yourself, a savior of your own human experience, right? And that's different because everybody has their own hero's journey. We're a hero in our own right.
Yeah.
Right. So what works for you may only work for you. However, there is some common themes there, right? Everybody is in their own space and is going to have their own direction on that hero's journey. Though one of the things that has always lit me up with you is your level of curiosity, right? And we were talking about two things. We talked about curiosity and gratitude.
Yeah.
You brought that forward as far as, one of the things that you're tapping into right now. And then you also, and I'm throwing a lot out there, you also spoke to the rainbow body as being a part of your current work as well. And you even laid some of that out. So the questions that I have here, and just navigate wherever we end up going, and if we need to go back, that's totally fine. What have been some of the tools, technologies, and resources that have allowed you to maintain your direction on your individual hero's journey? And then we can go into the rainbow body and where you're at with that, and the curiosity and the gratitude. And I'm sure that, these things are going to be interwoven with what you're going to share here in my own speculation. So if you could just expand on that.
Yeah.
I know that's a lot there.
Yeah, well, let's make the best out of it. We can't really go wrong. The only thing we can is just elaborate exponentially and end up
For
in,
sure.
nowhere. But let's try to bring it within a context that makes it consumable for people.
Yes.
So a big part of spirituality, just in general, is the first word that sort of just kept coming up was to step into gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And to expand on what gratitude means to me is gratitude to me is to allow everything to happen and to actually accept it as it is, and to feel content about it. Like, no matter the situation I'm in, no matter the circumstances, I can always return to the unconditional loving emotion of gratitude. So, for instance, if I was to lose my house, if I was to end up in a very dark place, no matter how dark it becomes, I can always tune in and tell myself, okay, so what do I actually, instead of focusing on all the things that I lack, focus on what do I actually have. And the gratitude takes us then back to a sense of not lack, but rather what I have already received. What is it that already exists here and now for me that I can create a platform out of, for me to use as a springboard to sort of throw me onto the next phase of my life it just becomes a constructive way of thinking.
Yeah.
Like, you always return to the positive.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, I started the gratitude practice a year ago. No, it was way before that. It's actually 2 years ago. My stepfather died.
Mm-hmm.
And I started having visions of him telling me that I needed to be more grateful. So with that, I started telling myself, whenever I went to go to bed, I started just closing my eyes, and I told myself 5 things that I appreciated, that I was grateful for. And I did the same thing when I woke up in the morning. Mm-hmm. That practice was just breaking down all of my beliefs. So when I did that, especially in the morning, it became a new platform for me to start the day with a positive mindset. Not only that, but because it brings such an emotion of peace within, to not chase everything out there, because you're not in a state of lack. You actually feel like, I already have what I need. So I don't need to prove anything. I have myself. I have people around me that I care about. It's enough. Mm. And that would take me into a state of mind that allowed whoever I met during the day to step into that place with me, rather than me feeling like I had to convince them of what was important to me. All of a sudden, I was just sitting there and I was asking, how are you? How are you feeling?
Yeah.
What's going on with you right now? And trying to just be a person who cared for the people around me. And it allowed me to see a lot of the people who were still in a state of lack. Because when we tend to chase the validation externally, that's the ultimate expression of lack.
Yeah.
So after being on the ultimate path of gratitude for a while, it became a sort of a new pattern for me. And after pondering this in a philosophical way for quite a while, I started to recognize that it was very comparable to if we start to tap into the yin and yang symbol.
Yeah.
The yin is sort of the divine feminine. It's the receptive part of us that feels like I already have enough, and I say thank you for whatever you bring. I don't need it, but I appreciate it. And then the other side of that, the other part of the yin and yang symbol is the yang, and that is the masculine part of us. And I link that back to curiosity, because I feel like curiosity is the first sort of whenever you want to explore anything outside of you, it's the curiosity that becomes the driving force for that happening. If you're not curious about it, you're apathetic about it, and you couldn't care less. But curiosity allows you to tap into it and actually try to figure out, what does this mean? How can I explore this? I come up with different theses. I try to express my truth, see if, okay, does this work? I start, and with different sort of expressions, I try to experiment with that and see what can I conclude with. And after enough curiosity, expression, and experimentation, I sort of break down what really works, the synthesis of it all, which becomes the integral part of what is it that works for me and what does not work for me.
Mm-hmm.
So if I compare that to the general consciousness that you were just laying out there for me, the yin and yang symbol becomes for me the ultimate full circle of consciousness, the consciousness circle, really. So when we are young and we know nothing about the world, we're curious about everything, and we know nothing about pain yet. So we are curious about everything. We tend to lay around on the floor on our tummies like small infants, and we put everything in our mouth to taste. We start to touch different things, explore them, and it won't take too long before you experience what it feels like to touch a surface that is really hot, and you burn yourself. So I'll use that as an example for when the body all of a sudden realizes, wow, that there's certain aspects of this universe that will actually cause me pain, and that pain causes the fear to have another experience of pain. And that makes us being very aware of how comfortable it is to not be in a state of pain. And that also allows us to not wanting to explore too much. We tend to sort of we want to stay in a controlled environment, to explore in a safe environment.
Like we create our own threshold.
Yeah, exactly. And that becomes the limitations of the mind, right?
Yeah.
So if I can just break that down into two powerful words that I use to navigate my life right now, is that I use the divine feminine as a way to anchor myself into, okay, I'm appreciative of what I already have. I don't feel a sense of lack, but I'm still curious about, there's a lot of things that I haven't really explored yet. And how can I use that curiosity as a driving force to align with my purpose and my passion, and then imagine what I do want to create and manifest into the world. So that becomes the positive aspect of the masculine or the yang. And then that brings me back to the divine masculine that a lot of people tend to call it. When you're aligned with both gratitude and curiosity, you're aligned at the center of the yin and yang, which is the thin line in between, that from ancient times is referred to as the shin. And the shin to me means truth. So once you're aligned with your own truth, You're aligned with the gratitude for all that you are and the curiosity for all that you still can allow yourself to be. And that also becomes the level of consciousness that says, I'm a conscious being, and I'm a conscious doer. Right? So the yin and the yang is white and black, right? And we tend to perceive the world, especially here in the West, as in a duality, a sense of duality, where everything is either black or white. It's either good or bad. It's either dark or light, and the devil or God or Jesus, or, but it is the truth that exists in between them that becomes the rainbow, all the nuances of life, and how to appreciate all of those nuances. And that is what I refer to as youth, because youth ultimately means to me the beautiful expression of the innocent inner child that we all have within us. So the child then becomes the expression for youth. So that's why I call myself youth on the on social media, because I feel like that is sort of my ultimate expression. I stand up for the youth, the inner children in all of us. And let's use an example for that. There are people in their 80s that still misses their father. They're still not aligned with their inner child. They still don't feel seen. So there are people in all ages, all over the world, who are not aligned and do not feel seen. And that's why we have the world looking like it does, basically, is what I believe. Yeah.
So true. So true. A case in point. And thank you for everything that you shared, because you definitely touched on everything that I laid out in such a beautiful way. And that last example there of there's people that are in their 80s, that are still searching for that, right? They're still desiring that. And when I wrote my book, I went on a book tour. And the first book tour that I did is I went to a bunch of assisted living facilities all over the state of Florida, right? From Jacksonville down to Naples to Miami, Fort Lauderdale, the whole entire state, Orlando. And the name of my book, for those that didn't know, it's called It All Begins With You. Well, I had them do an exercise. Now, mind you, these are people that are easily over retirement age, most of them pushing into their 90s. And they came in not because they wanted to, because it was an offering that was being presented. So for them, it's something to do during the day, right? Let me just go see what's going on in there. And they didn't really care. It was just something to do. So I was working against that. But the first thing that I had, because I was 32 at the time, right? So who am I to go in there to say it all begins with you at your age? Though you really brought that home, because the first exercise that I had them do was to close their eyes. And I said, just bear with me. Just close your eyes for a moment. And some people are, they're just, I'm not doing it. Just do me a favor. Just close your eyes just for a moment. Just give me this. You'll have your eyes open the whole rest of the time. Give me just a few moments. So begrudgingly, you might close their eyes. So imagine yourself as 18. You're just graduating high school right now. What does the world look like? What does it feel like? And then all of a sudden, you see their faces completely shift, right? Going from, why the heck am I in this room with this guy, to just pure joy.
Yeah.
Or some of them might even have a tear. Some of them might get a scrunchy face because of an experience, but the emotion is coming forward.
Yeah.
And then I would go around and ask them, So what did you see? What did you feel? I wish I had my dad.
Yeah.
I wish I had my mom.
Yeah.
My family didn't have money for me to go to college.
Yeah.
You know, my dad is still over in Germany or wherever it was, you know, whatever country it war, you know. The beautiful part of that was witnessing that still at that age, when the opportunity is presented, people can tap into their emotional availability and feel what's still accessible to them to embody and become integrated. Because what you brought home there was with the practice of gratitude, when you began with that, right? And let me not project. When it was shared that the practice of gratitude was opened up, what it brought me back to was that it neutralized and harmonized the younger version of you that was chasing validation,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So it's like, I'm so grateful for what's here and now. I don't need to externalize my experience of anything that's outside of me. However, I'm still going to be curious.
Yeah.
And then that curiosity, what that opens up is now there's a hero's journey that's available for me.
Oh, yeah.
You know, now there's an open-ended question. And how fucking brilliant is that?
Yeah.
And how grateful I am that I get to fucking play in that field, right?
Yeah.
Like, how magical is that? Now life takes on a totally different thing of like, I want my sergeant to fucking see, I just saved 5 people from 100 meters down. And you're like, what the fuck, man? I just saved I just saved people. And it's like, oh, well, you still don't want to listen to shit that I have to say, you know? And it's like, well, what do I need to do? Well, now I'm curious. Now I have gratitude. Now I'm the hero of my own journey, and I get to integrate that into my daily practice. And what does that bring forth? It brings home the integrated man.
Yeah.
Right? It brings home the whole yin, the yang, and how you brought that shin right in the center is like the essence of our own truth.
Yeah.
Right. Of where it isn't black and white. It's all a rainbow.
Yeah.
There's so many different colors that are within there, and we get to dance within that spectrum. We get to dance within the framework. And the faster you spin that yin and yang around, there's no black or white anymore. You don't see it anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it's all one color with a little pin dot in the center, which is us, which is the essence of our truth. And what's one of the things, like when we were kids, man, like we have the tops or like the dreidels, you know, and you spin them around.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like you spin them around, they have the little pinpoint on them, you spin them, and then it's like they have like different colors on the top, and then all of a sudden you spin it and you just see like the pattern goes away, you know, and it's just like a tornado in the middle. And it's like, that's our inner child. We get to play within that.
Yeah.
The youth. And thank you for expressing that, because that's really what it is, because we get to operate in that space of integrity when we're in play mode. When we're in play mode, right?
Yeah.
So there's passion, there's purpose, there's presence. It's all the things you and I have been talking about. So many of the synchronicities that we have with each other between the light, you know, the light bearer, the torch bearer, you know, between the things that we're of service to. And I'm just so much in a space of gratitude of knowing you, in a space of curiosity to see what we get to play with moving forward and what is going to show up.
Yeah, ditto. Were you done?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I want to, you know, just to elaborate further on that torchbearer thing. That what I found is that there are multiple symbols that are equal to the yin and yang. Most people just are not aware of it. So, for instance, if you look into the Pisces symbol, you can really see it as a circle that started to move. It cut itself into two different halves and started to shift slowly into the two different sides, and then they become two circles who envelopes each other at the middle, and that's the duality mode.
Yeah,
that is sort of the metaphor that says the shaming or the first wounding of your inner child has left you with that tiny place in the center of your being that's just a void, a dark hole that you can't seem to fill with anything, because you're trying to fill it with external validations, but everything you throw into that, it just becomes a black hole that just devours it and it's gone. But once you allow yourself to be brave enough to actually stare into the abyss of that void, you will be able to see the light that's within the void, right?
So powerful.
So it was not until I was brave enough to look into the depths of my own darkness, all of my traumas, that I found the light within that. You know, the little tiny piece of ember that still glows within you, that little tiny piece of that inner child that hasn't stopped believing in you, that part of you that still knows I'm here. A lot of people refer to that as the soul that's always just been waiting for you to come home and recognize yourself. So when that happens, when you fill that void with that light, you become the torchbearer for others, because once you find that ember and you blow on it and you create that torch, the whole void shifts and it becomes white, and the two duality, the two halves of that Pisces circles realigns, and union they become one again. And that is finding your truth. That's finding out who I am. That's finding out my purpose. And once you allow yourself to finally start speaking your truth again, like your truth actually matters to you, then that becomes your new reality, that my truth actually matters. I don't care if people tell me they don't care about it, because I care about it. It's important to me. That is integrity. And when you have integrity, you have a cause that you're actually willing to give your fucking life for. And that is what I believe is the true essence of the teachings of Yeshua, or Jesus, was that he was on his own hero's journey. And if you compare the Jesus mythology to a lot of different mythologies, like, for instance, we can use all of the Disney movies as an example here. Let's use The Lion King. All right. So a lot of people are looking to Simba, and he's sort of the hero of that story. And then Scar is the evil uncle, the villain of the story. And what happens in all of the different Disney mythologies or the stories is that the hero ends up slaying the villain and killing his nemesis. But what sets that apart from the story of Jesus is that when he was standing up to tyranny, he refused to slay his enemy, because he knew that they were just little children who hadn't found themselves yet. That's why he's at the cross and he's looking up towards the sky and says, "Forgive them, they do not know what they're doing," right? Because they haven't found their truth yet. But he was actually willing to die for what he believed in. And his truth is not to slay his enemy, it's to stand up as an ultimate being, of being just a light and loving human being who sees everyone, reminds them of the beauty that they have and that they hold and everything that they are, and allows them to step into a place of just, you're here now with me and I see you. I see everything that you are, everything you're trying to be. I see all of your efforts, and just relax. You're safe with me. I'm here to hold you. I'm here to see you. I'm here to listen to your story. Let's talk about you. Let me learn more about you, because as you tell your story, your vulnerable story about who you are, what you've been through, it allows me to learn more about myself. Right? And we become one. You and me, we understand each other because we dare to be vulnerable with each other instead of talking about fucking grass or lawnmowers or what kind of car I'm driving or what I'm doing for work. Who cares what I'm doing for work? People ask me what are you doing for work now? You know, walking around being kind to people.
Yes. Yes.
That's not a job, man. Well, actually it is.
It is.
It's not even a job, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's my life. Yeah.
Morten, I think that is such a beautiful space to be able to, I don't even have the words to be able to express the beauty of how you brought that home. Just thank you. Gratitude.
Thank you.
Gratitude,
thank
brother.
you.
I love you
Thank you.
deeply for who you are, for everything that you shine your light upon, for how you express so vulnerably from your heart space. And everything that you spoke of as the torturer is exactly who you are. That's how I feel you to be.
Thank you.
What I know to be true for you. And just thank you for that reflection, brother. It's time to shine the light. The light has always been shining. It's time for the world to see it, to witness it, to feel it for themselves, to be the torchbearer in their own life.
Yeah.
You know? And so I want to ask you just a closing question that I ask everybody on the show is, what do you think that we can do to support a more sustainable and harmonious co-creative experience for all? And it's a two-part question. It's really the same question, is how can we be better together?
I appreciate that being the final question, actually, because it allows me to bring home and interweave another aspect that I've been meaning to tell people about, tell you about in this beautiful space that you hold for me here. Appreciative of that.
Yes.
Appreciative of that. So what I want people to know is that the main reason that people are not very conscious about all of their actions is because the stressful environment that we are living in today is a consequence of us not having been taught about how our nervous system works. So we can compare this again to the yin and the yang, because we have a peripheral nervous system that works in two ways. So we have the sympathetic one, and that's activated whenever you are in a stressful environment where you need to focus. So the amygdala is a part of your brain, tells your body that you need to work. And what happens then is that it activates your endocrine system, and your adrenal glands starts producing adrenaline and cortisol. And with that, it also tells your pancreas to start producing insulin and to create more blood sugar for your muscles to work with, because now you're in work mode. The problem is that most people are in this kind of state all of the time. And what happens then is that we are tired all of the time. And since we haven't been taught how to tap into the other side of that, the thing that happens is that we are in constantly stressful behavior, and that stressful behavior makes us often, we're not able to be compassionate within that state. We don't tend to see the people around us, because that state is all about me, right? What do I need right now? And that state is, in psychology, they refer to it as the fight or flight mode, where you either need to fight for your life or flee away from a situation. In society today, that's seldom the case, though. We're not very often in those kind of situations.
Yeah.
But it's the same reaction, or the same response that happens in our body, which creates this stressful behavior. But it also makes you look for enemies everywhere, because your brain is telling your body that you're not in a safe place right now. You need to get out. You start to look for shady figures around you, start to perceiving potential dangers around you. And it makes you live on the edge all the time, basically. So I want people to learn how to use different techniques to tap into the other aspect of the peripheral nervous system, which is the parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
The parasympathetic nervous system allows you to step away from the stress, to step away from the fight-flight mode, and realign yourself with inner peace. Once you do that, automatically you open up to perceive the beauty that surrounds you instead of all of the enemies. Now, common techniques are such as, cold plunges. Why do people cold plunge so much? A lot of people ask me that. And the reason they do it is, at least why I'm doing it, is because I can't stand the cold water. I'm afraid of the cold water. There's no part of me that really wants to go in there. So the thing that happens when you surround yourself with freezing cold water is that there's only one way to step out of the pain, and that's to focus on your breath. So when you focus on your breath, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system, and you are able to stay calm in chaotic situations.
Yes.
So when you do that enough times, you're able to bring that with you into other situations in your day-to-day life, which allows you also to be more open and acceptable to all of the stressful behaviors and the chaos that is in. Like, take an example that most people can relate to, is just driving your car to work and having to work yourself through massive traffic every fucking day.
Yeah.
Wasting your time, wasting your life. And instead of sitting there honking the horn and being stressful and angry about whatever is not working for you, just breathe and allow yourself to listen to a beautiful podcast, and take this time as a gift for you to sit with yourself. It becomes a state where all of a sudden you're in a solitude space and you open up to the beauty. So another aspect is to meditate, because it's the same thing. So whenever we meditate or do breath work, like a lot of people who teaches breath work, they claim to say that breath work is really meditation on steroids. And I can definitely vouch for that because that's my experience as well. So what happens when you do breath work is that, as far as I've understood, is that you bring so much oxygen into your body that you completely fill all of your cells with oxygen, and that makes your blood become alkaline. And what happens is that all of the acid that is stored within your muscle fibers is released. And acid in the cells are sort of, it feels like destructive energy. And once you release that and you breathe it out, it's released from the body. And that's, you release yourself of the toxic emotions that you got stored in your body and your energy centers and the chakras that you have. So it's really a perfect way for you to just reset the body and become blissful and feel blessed. So the thing that I want to tell people about how they can become better versions of themselves in the most easy way is just to be curious about breath work, be curious about meditation, be curious about healing your traumas. Maybe just try a cold shower every once in a while. You don't have to start off with 6 minutes in the bathtub. Just start with 10 seconds in a cold shower. That's enough, yeah. And you can progress from there. And what I believe is that when enough people tap into that power of the parasympathetic nervous system, they become more peaceful. And the more people that finds peace within themselves will allow us to create peace outside of ourselves. And that peace will allow us to create a more beautiful and peaceful world. Mm-hmm. So it's much easier than a lot of people understand, but they tend to be afraid of change and don't really want that uncomfortable thing. But rather to explore that uncomfortable, like 10 seconds of a cold shower, than sitting in a world in 5 years that you can't believe is existing. Yeah. And that's going to be way more uncomfortable, I can tell you, than those 10 seconds of the cold shower. So be conscious about everything that you're doing that makes you a conscious human being. Mm. Yeah.
So powerful, man. Just thank you for that, because it's the simplistic practices that can really initiate massive change. And those simple practices are ones that are right here within us. We don't have to go searching for them. There's no coincidence that the inhalation is the inspiration. It inspires our cells. Yeah. It inspires our whole physical form. So inviting that, let's invite more inspiration. Let's invite more peace. Let's activate our parasympathetic nervous system. Just thank you for the way that you express that for our listeners, to give them a takeaway, right?
Thank you.
Just thank you. Thank you. And thank you for, taking the time today to, expand upon your journey, expand upon and lay out the pathway that has led you to where you are now and what you're of service to, and how you see the more beautiful world that we know is possible, the more sustainable and harmonious co-creative experience that is right here, right now, in this moment. We don't have to wait for it, right? It's right here. So before we close out, are there any last words? And then also, if you can let our listeners know where they can find you, where they can tap into your wisdom, or how they can reach out to you if you desire. And then I'll also make sure that I have that in the show notes listed below if you are now tuning into this podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, to finish off, I noticed that you used the word inspiration, and in regards to the in-breath. And let's just dive into the meaning of spirit, right? Because spirit is actually an ancient Latin word from spirare, and spirare means breathing. So if you want to align yourself with the spirit within, all that you truly are, you need to learn how to breathe properly.
Yes.
That's why breath work works so perfectly well. It aligns you with the parasympathetic nervous system. Tap into your true potential of all that you are. So inspiring, when you inspire yourself, you automatically inspire others. And when everyone is open to the fact that this is not a competition, we don't need to compare ourselves, that everyone is just beauty, a pure expression of beauty, we can just breathe together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So finding me on social media and stuff, you can put it in the show notes. It's I am Veimann. That's IAMVEIMANN. You can find me on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. Not really big on TikTok yet. You can find me on Facebook as well. And I have my own website. It's veimann.com. Have to remind people that I'm fairly new to the whole coming out of the closet thing. Mm-hmm. So it's not a big platform. I don't have a lot of followers. With that said, I don't look for a lot of followers either. I look for leaders in their own lives, and for us all to be leaders together, because a leader who seeks admiration ultimately ends up being a ruler, and I seek no rulership of anyone but myself. So yeah, and thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. It's always so nice to talk to you, John. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm talking to this beautiful mirror. I appreciate you so much. And,
likewise, brother.
Look forward to our journey together.
Absolutely. This won't be our last conversation on here, and I'm very much looking forward to everything that we share in the outside of the platform. And yes, man, just the most beautiful mirror. Just thank you so much for everything that you are of service to, for joining us today. And for all of our listeners, please make sure to tap into the show notes, tune in with Morten, his journey and everything that he shines his light upon. You will be a better human being for it. You may just start to explore yourself in ways that are beyond what you thought were possible, and tap in to yourself and be a victor of your own truth. So thank you all for joining us today. We love you deeply, and remember, we are better together. If this podcast resonated with you, or if you feel that there's someone that would, please pass it on. That's what Reverberations is all about, echoing a message that resonates within. And if you or anyone that you are connected with is feeling disconnected from passion, purpose, stuck in a feedback loop of repeating patterns that aren't providing results that are in alignment with what you desire, let's free up some bandwidth, open up the possibilities, and embrace the fire within. Visit Embrace the Fire Within, select a time to connect, and I look forward to our conversation. Have an amazing day. Love you all. The medicine of the heart. What is possible within and throughout when we give ourselves permission to open our heart, to receive, to breathe, to weave love into existence in the present moment, to be the living evidence, to to be the love that we wish to receive. When we walk the path of our heartfelt desire, our soul's yes, our most intimate and expansive vision begins to show up. We begin to show up as we are magnetized by our curiosity. We are guided by a force that works behind the scenes. Synchronistic encounters of the infinite kind begin to show up for us. And when we drink our own medicine, taste the fruits of our labor, listen to our own wisdom, practically apply it, radically trust in the process, the divine orchestration, we embody the frequency of love within, irradiated throughout. It permeates, it pervades, it reverberates, it echolocates to, like what Charles Eisenstein says, to a more beautiful world that our heart knows is possible, to truly be better together. When we open to that space and give ourselves permission